Now to the breaking news overnight about the Jeffrey Epstein files and the conspiracy theories officially being rejected. Overnight, the FBI and Justice Department releasing 11 hours of footage they say helps confirm notorious financier Jeffrey Epstein died by suicide in his Manhattan jail cell in 2019, awaiting his sex trafficking trial. According to a memo detailing the findings, investigators found the video showed no one entering the area in the overnight hours before Epstein was found unresponsive. But perhaps the biggest bombshell, investigators say they found no incriminating client list of Epstein's, no credible evidence that Epstein blackmailed prominent individuals, and no evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties. For years, Epstein has been at the center of conspiracies surrounding both his death and a rumored client list allegedly used to blackmail powerful men. Attorney General Pam Bondi, back in February, was asked if the Justice Department intended to release a list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Bondi saying this.
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that.
So have you seen anything that you said, oh my gosh?
Not yet.
And just last month, while feuding with President Trump, Elon Musk posting, "Time to drop the really big bomb. At real Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. That is the real reason they have not been made public. Have a nice day, Donald J. Trump." But Musk later deleted that post and others, saying he went too far in attacking Trump. The president saying he cut ties with Epstein nearly 2 decades ago, saying even Epstein's lawyer cleared him. This is the first time the Trump administration has officially contradicted conspiracy theories about Epstein, theories previously pushed by members of the administration.
Welcome back to the DOJ Has Downs. They're at the gate, and they're off. Jumping out in the lead is underage girls and Bill Clinton close behind. It's a blue dress painting and a creepy island. And now here comes the Lolita Express. A curious prince. Andrew falls back as the FBI takes the reins. Faulty cameras falls off quickly as a fat Bill Barr moves into position. And here comes My Guards. Took a nap followed by the strongest bedsheets and the dumbest thing we've ever heard. Coming down the back stretch is Maxwell the Mossad agent moving ahead of dumb horny celebrities. But coming on the inside is leveraged politicians and a blackmail operation. It's Binders Bondi followed by 10,000 hours of footage. Awful footage. Boxes of evidence is challenging for second going into the clubhouse turn. Passing on the rail is a creepy temple that looks like Ellen DeGeneres studio backdrop, followed by cardboard in the windows, a giggling Bill Gates, and in general, you always have to be careful. Here they come, spinning out of the turn. Epstein didn't kill himself is in the lead, but here comes Cash and Bongino. No arrests and public outrage are neck and neck, and down the stretch they come. Pedos run our government is pulling away from disappearing victims by a length, but coming in strong is no videos exist, but I saw the video, and nothing is wrong. Binders Bondi is passing phase 1, and at the wire it's Epstein. Did hang himself, there is no list, and a massive scandalous cover-up.
I don't know how you do it, Jerry. I don't know how you do it. Good morning. It's Benny. We are live. And Jeffrey Epstein killed himself by accident before getting exonerated because there's no evidence against him. That's the world that you're waking up to today. Now, I'm furious about this. I'm very angry. And this show is going to carve and gut this fish savagely. We have so many receipts, and it's the first time I've really, truly felt lied to. And I'm going to process this live, and I've done nothing but thinking. Didn't sleep super well last night because this broke about 9 p.m., and we had to tear through it, and I was furious. And I'm angry right now. Do my best to control it. I thank you, Jerry, our meme maker on this channel, for that hysterical meme. Because at the very least, that calms me down a little bit. I can have a little chuckle before the show. But this one's tough. Jerry, you are an artist, and I'd watch that video, all right? Yeah, Seabiscuit. I'm not going to make a naughty joke. Okay, all right. Whatever version of, like, Pedo Island biscuit that is, we're not getting it. We're not getting anything, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm sorry to say it. Here's your eternal black pill. That is a historic one today, Monday, July 7th, 2025. The DOJ makes an announcement on Jeffrey Epstein and says nothing. Apparently, Jeffrey Epstein didn't even exist. And he killed himself because there was no evidence against him at all. And that's just the way it goes, ladies and gentlemen. Trump responds to Elon Musk creating a third party. We'll talk about that. But we're going to carry this topic through to Mike Benz, who, of course, is the master of all things deep state and has some very deep thoughts on what's going on here and what the actual protectionist racket is and why Jeffrey Epstein has now been buried with all of the evidence against him. Nate Morris will also join the program. He's a Senate candidate looking to take Mitch McConnell's seat. It'd be nice to get a +1 in the Senate who's an actual Republican. Mitch McConnell, of course, is not. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Benny Johnson, and this is The Benny Show. Okay, so before we dive into all of this, make sure that you are securing your future in these uncertain times. Going gold is the best way to do that. Former IMF chief economist Kenneth Rogoff warns in his new book, Our Dollar, Your Problem, that the U.S. dollar's dominance is under attack. If the dollar fails, then your life savings could be at risk. This is why Advantage Gold is giving away a free copy of Rogoff's book. Right now, schedule a one-on-one precious metals appointment. Text Benny to 85545. You'll discover why gold is becoming the number one hedge against global currency shift, how to move your IRA 401k into physical gold tax and penalty free, and how to get up to $10,000 of free gold and silver while qualifying for an account. Get your free copy today while supplies last. Text Benny to 85545. That's Benny to 85545. Or go to AdvantageGold.com. AdvantageGold.com. Data and message rate supply. Performance may vary. Consult your financial and tax professionals. Let's talk a little bit about what just happened. In the dark of night, in what is an absolute abomination of a news cycle, when a lot of the functional world is asleep or preparing to go to sleep. I happened to have been in bed, actually, at 9 p.m. last night after a very long 4th of July weekend, but a wonderful one, and a wonderful, happy 4th of July weekend I hope you had as well with you, your loved ones, and family. We were burning the midnight oil here as we got right back up and went to record and to rip through the nothing of the federal government, officially confirming that the cover-up is complete for Jeffrey Epstein. I have a lot of thoughts on this. I'm just going to start sort of off the top here, and we're going to tear through what we know about Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. This is a photo of Virginia Roberts. Virginia Roberts is one of many young, broken women who were preyed upon by Jeffrey Epstein. This is laid out in full detail in multiple documentaries and in thousands of interviews. Virginia Roberts was entrapped by Epstein. He took advantage of her, luring her into a life of luxury, private jets, private islands, with the exchange for you're going to have sex with the people I tell you to, when I tell you to do it. But all the rest of the times, you get to live on a private plane, in a palace, on an island. You might even meet a prince. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been so well documented, Virginia Roberts went public with it. Now, I'm sure we have the Virginia Roberts clip. If we don't, please grab it. I want to hear from her herself. It's time to dignify some of the people who have been forgotten about by our federal government, the actual Epstein victims. Virginia Roberts is real. She existed. Her story is real. There's physical evidence to document it. There's literal photographs of Ghislaine Maxwell and Virginia Roberts with somebody named Prince Andrew, who's one of many very powerful men who she was trafficked to. The reason why we're going to take this with deep seriousness is not only because Virginia Roberts is a real person, but she also suffered a very real, tragic death. Mysteriously, just vanishing, just like they all do, right? By suicide in the dark of night without any warning or any recourse. Virginia Roberts deserves to have her story told, and tell it she did many times. She said that Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein, after years of sexual abuse to her, then trafficked her out effectively sold her to powerful men and people. This happened all throughout the world. One of those men was the Duke of York here, who ended up having to pay tens of millions of pounds, got his title stripped from him, and has been banished from the royal family because of this. Those things don't happen if it wasn't real, if it's not true. Here's what Virginia Roberts had to say about Prince Andrew and the operation against him, her. She details it here. Again, we're not going to forget these things. We're going to get to what the feds told you yesterday. But I think it's, and you've obviously probably seen it in your timeline. The feds say none of this existed. But it does exist. Here's Virginia Roberts in her own words.
First time in London, I was so young. Ghislaine woke me up in the morning and said, "You're going to meet a prince today." I didn't know at that point that I was going to be trafficked to that prince. And then that night, Prince Andrew came to her house in London, and we went out to Club Tramp. Prince Andrew got me alcohol. It was in the VIP section. I'm pretty sure it was vodka. Prince Andrew was like, "Let's dance together." And I was like, okay. And we leave Club Tramp, and I hop in the car with Ghislaine and Jeffrey. And Ghislaine said, "He's coming back to the house. And I want you to do for him what you do for Epstein." I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that even royalty were involved.
Virginia Roberts has been public about this for a very long time. After 20 years of sexual abuse, Virginia Roberts decided to tell her story, a story like that. Again, this isn't a nuisance lawsuit. This got Prince Andrew stripped of his title. Prince Andrew's own friends on hidden camera, captured by James O'Keefe, said, yeah, he was banging underage girls. Here's family friend of the royal family, somebody who was about as close as you can get, explaining that, yeah, they totally caught him. Prince Andrew was doing this. Here we go.
Prince Andrew, he was in the Navy. He was 250 days at sea. He never thought of it. I was really pissed because he lied to me about Epstein. And then I did a big thing in the Daily Mail saying that I believed Andrew. And then I found out he was lying. I was so pissed. No, that he was f***ing underage girls.
I found out he was lying. Yeah, he was effing underage girls. How'd that happen exactly? Virginia Roberts. I'm making it publicly known, in no way, shape, or form am I suicidal. Well, she's gone now. Hit by a bus in the Australian outback. Nobody knows who the bus driver was. Bus didn't stop. No police report. Wound up in the hospital. She said, "I'm days away from dying," and then she does die by suicide. Her father and lawyer said that it wasn't a suicide, but just ignore all that, right? Yeah. Virginia Roberts was one of the last pieces of evidence that was physically remaining in the Jeffrey Epstein saga. You understand? Virginia Roberts being alive is a living testament to what this operation was. And now she's gone. The Duke of York getting his title stripped from him, having to pay millions, tens of millions of pounds to Virginia Roberts for what he did to her, is an example of what the operation was. And there are many Epstein victims who've mysteriously died by suicide. Just a small list here, ladies and gentlemen. Virginia, Carolyn, John, Jeffrey, Joseph. Just the strange suicides of the Epstein empire. Don't worry, I'm sure it all happened because there's no evidence of this. This is what we're told. We're told that there's no evidence. It's very strange. We're going to get into what the feds are covering up here, but let's just get down to the brass tacks. Jeffrey Epstein is a sex offender and did run a sex ring, and yes, he was found guilty of that. He should have been in prison for the rest of his life. Jeffrey Epstein, convicted sex offender. Why did the powerful stick with him? Let's go ahead and read here, shall we? Just a little, let's just do like a very quick breeze through what happened in 2008. Jeffrey Epstein had reportedly been accused of sexually abusing dozens of minor girls in his Palm Beach mansion. He was staring down the barrel of a federal indictment that would have sent him to prison forever. It's a life prison sentence. Instead, the wealthy financier pleaded guilty just in a Florida state court in 2008 to one count each of soliciting minors for prostitution and soliciting prostitution. He served a 13-month stint in a county jail and was regularly allowed to leave as part of a generous work release program. So he was able to go do more of this. Once he was free, the gilded Rolodex of Rolexes of the world, wealthy and powerful, continued to mingle with the convicted sex offender. Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell were both found guilty of sex trafficking. Not one, not two, but according to the feds, thousands of women. Who are they trafficking them to? You're going to sell millions of pounds of fentanyl. Well, okay, you're a criminal. But also the people who's buying the fentanyl, they're criminals too. And the law must charge them both. What the feds are expecting us to believe here is that in spite of all of the demonstrable evidence that is set before us, that we can see with our eyes, that Jeffrey Epstein never had any clients at all, never had any customers, even though those customers are on camera explaining what the operation was. In fact, this Virginia Roberts story is a really wild one. The reason why she had to die was because she was sort of the key to everything, wasn't she? Remember that Project Veritas tape? Way back in the day, ABC News? Virginia Roberts' story really mattered until it didn't. This is ABC News' top anchoress named Amy Rohrbach complaining that Virginia Roberts, who had told her all of the stories, photos, physical evidence, documented evidence. This is why we're taking this so seriously. Obviously, there are spurious claims. There are nuisance lawsuits. Virginia Roberts has the physical evidence that all of this happened. And more mysteriously, all of that evidence has gone missing. We're going to detail all of that because there's something that's happening here where all the evidence, physical or living, is getting deleted. Just listen to this. It's so chilling to hear it one more time. To hear that back in the day, they used leverage from the royal family and from the federal government and from top TV news executives to kill this reporter's story. She had it all. Here we go.
I've had the story for 3 years. I've had this interview with Virginia Roberts. We would not put it on the air. First of all, I was told, who's Jeffrey Epstein? No one knows who that is. This is a stupid story. Then the palace found out that we had her whole allegations about Prince Andrew and threatened us a million different ways. We were so afraid we wouldn't be able to interview Kate and Will that also quashed the story. And then Alan Dershowitz was also implicated in it because of the planes. She told me everything. She had pictures. She had everything. She was in hiding for 12 years. We convinced her to come out. We convinced her to talk to us. It was unbelievable what we had. Clinton. We had everything. I tried for 3 years to get it on, to no avail, and now it's all coming out, and it's like these new revelations, and I freaking had all of it. I'm so pissed right now. Like, every day I get more and more pissed because I'm just like, oh my God, what we had was unreal. Other women backing it up.
What we had was unreal. We had pictures, photos, videos, evidence, the client list, everything. We had her on camera. Ladies and gentlemen, that list is so real, in fact, that Pam Bondi has been talking about it. Like, nonstop. To this show, for instance.
Scaring bad guys is something Cash has talked about a lot, and you have when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein and the people who are like predators in this country. Yeah. They've been given a pass, and a lot of Americans think these guys have got a pass for a long time, and maybe even are still being protected right now. Where are we at with the Jeffrey Epstein list, the documents? And Cash has made a lot of public statements about this. Where are we at?
I was briefed on that yesterday. I can't talk about that publicly, but President Trump has given a very strong directive, and that's going to be followed.
Wow. Okay. So
a lot of documents.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So people can expect actual movement on this. It's not just empty promises.
Oh, Donald Trump doesn't make empty promises. Yeah, right. I think promises made, promises kept. And
so wait a second. Like a lot of documents. Pam Bondi saying, again, in response to our show, an interview we did with James Comer, who said there are no documents. They've all been deleted, and we'll cover that in just a second. Saying, no, I have so many documents, they're literally on my desk right now. We're going through all of them right now, and they include incredibly powerful people on videotape.
James Comer said yesterday that all the Epstein files are missing. They still haven't heard from you.
No, the FBI, the FBI, they're reviewing, there are tens of thousands of videos of Epstein with children or child porn. And there are hundreds of victims. And no one victim will ever get released. It's just the volume, and that's what they're going through right now. The FBI is diligently going through that. I haven't seen that statement, but I'll call him later and find out.
So, wait a second. There are so many documents that it's taking us months, maybe even years to go through them. The documents are on my desk. The list is on my desk. Pam Bondi saying the list is literally on my desk in this interview.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive.
Okay. One last one. Alina Habba. We got it, right? All right. I'm not calling the friends of this show liars. I believe that they were telling the truth here. Something dark has happened that has prevented the actual release of this list. Listen to the clarity with which Alina Habba, right at the start of the Trump administration, described the Epstein list. Here we go.
But in this case, in Epstein's case, it is incredibly disturbing. We have flight logs, we have information, names that will come out.
Is it going to be shocking?
I don't see how it's not shocking that there were so many individuals that were hidden and kept secret and not been held accountable. Let's talk about the reverse. I believe in accountability. So you have to now go through your process. Now, I won't say they're guilty until they go through their time in court. But again, now it's time for accountability. We have seen for so many years, Pierce, in this country, many investigations, subpoenas, testimonies in Congress, et cetera, et cetera. Yep. But there's a general frustration with accountability. We take it halfway, we don't take it home. And I really believe that now with Cash and Pam, there will be accountability.
So there is a list. It's on my desk. There are tens of thousands of videos, files, photos, powerful people, horrible. They've been using and gaming the system. We know the operation because it's been spilled, its guts been spilled. There's been massive payouts, lawsuits, constantly these massive lawsuits trying to lock down the list, trying to lock down all the evidence, trying to keep it from ever being released. Very powerful lawyers, law firms, bankers, billionaires, the most powerful people on earth involved between royal families and heads of state and intel agencies. And now this. Gotcha. There is no list, in fact. There was no blackmail operation. And Jeffrey Epstein definitely killed himself from the DOJ and the FBI. Okay. Let's read. President Donald Trump's Justice Department and FBI have concluded that they have no evidence the convicted sex offender and disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein blackmailed powerful figures, kept a client list, or was murdered, according to a memo detailing the findings obtained by Axios. I'm just going to go with this first paragraph here, because we started the show by talking in detail about who Virginia Roberts was and how she operated as one of the main faces for the sex trafficking ring, pederast ring, that was centrally organized by Jeffrey Epstein. This is a true story. They're a real person. She was really trafficked to Prince Andrew and many other men. So to say that is insane. We've seen the evidence with our own eyes. We've heard her, and now she's dead. To say that nothing happened here is to insult our intelligence. And I've had enough of it. I've had a belly full of it. It's not just that. There was no blackmail operation. This is weird. From The Guardian, but also from the Wall Street Journal, Forbes, and a number of other financial magazines, and every other publication on earth. Jeffrey Epstein blackmailed Bill Gates over extramarital affair with 20-year-old Russian chick who's cheating on his wife with. Many say that it was Epstein who introduced the two of them. You know, when it happens one time, a little strange. When it happens two times, exactly the same, you're starting to see a pattern there. When you look at some of the photos and some of the interactions that Bill Clinton had on the plane, Hollywood celebrities, billionaires, bankers, and so on, you start to really piece it all together. But here it is in black and white. Convicted sexual offender reportedly threatened to expose Gates' relationship with young Russian bridge player who he was having sex with on the side while he was married with kids. He was just the richest man in the world at that time. Oh, and Bill Gates was getting extorted by Epstein in order to fund certain things, in order to create some of these certain initiatives that Bill Gates has done. Some very interesting globalist initiatives that Bill Gates has created with his billions of dollars. Strange that. Isn't that odd? And I want to stop at a really important point here that I want to make, and I think it's really valid. This whole operation here with Bill Gates, this happened after Epstein was a convicted pederast. He is a convicted pederast. This in Palm Beach. Epstein should have been put away for life. According to Alex Acosta, he was told to let Epstein off because he belonged to Intel. Now, what the hell does that mean? Belonged to Intel. Well, we've never gotten an explanation. Was Alex Acosta lying? Doubt it. He served in the Trump administration. He was a federal trial lawyer, prosecutor for decades. There's something far more nefarious happening here. There is one person who ceased to operate with Jeffrey Epstein after these charges, and that was President Trump. Donald Trump, who, of course, like virtually every other member of high society, has some type of photo or interaction with Jeffrey Epstein. Remember, he was in the Bill Clinton White House like 107 times. He's on the guest list logs at the Clinton White House hundreds of times. Donald Trump banished him from his club. In fact, Donald Trump was the only man who helped in the prosecution of Epstein when he should have been put away for life in the Palm Beach case. We have that directly from the lawyer who prosecuted the case. Remember, Epstein was found guilty and pled guilty. So this is not us just assuming we know something. Ghislaine Maxwell, found guilty of sex trafficking. Jeffrey Epstein, found guilty of sex trafficking. Even before he was killed in his cell in New York. These are real things that really happened. Here's the lawyer that put him away the first time, that should have been put away for life, saying, no. The only man in all of Palm Beach that gave me a ring and said, I will help you prosecute Epstein, I've banished him from my club. As soon as I heard what he was into, I banned him from my club. That's on multiple authorities, including James Patterson, the most respected author probably in America. And then here's the lawyer saying, no, the only man who called to help was Trump to put Epstein away, the pederast. Here we go.
The only thing that I can say about President Trump is that he is the only person who, in 2009, when I served a lot of subpoenas on a lot of people, or at least gave notice to some pretty connected people that I wanted to talk to them, he is the only person who picked up the phone and said, let's just talk. I'll give you as much time as you want. I'll tell you what you need to know, and was very helpful in the information that he gave, and gave no indication whatsoever that he was involved in anything untoward whatsoever, but had good information that checked out and that helped us, and that we didn't have to take a deposition of him.
And that was in 2009?
That was in 2000.
Donald Trump is the only member of the Palm Beach community that called me and helped me put Epstein in prison. He gave me excellent information, and it is actually because of Donald Trump that Epstein went to jail. You want to look at the real problem? Here we go. I was told Epstein belonged to Intel and to leave it alone. The most important piece of evidence probably in this entire case. Alex Acosta, he belonged to Intel. I'm angry at all this. I think I have a lot of righteous indignation on it. Let's go read further in this Axios article. And I'm going to get to what I believe is happening here. And it's not pretty. And it's hard to really know who to blame. But I really feel bad for some friends of the show right now, quite frankly. We'll explain in just a moment. Here, let's read through what happened. So there's all the demonstrable evidence. What have we established? Multiple high-profile individuals, the richest man in the world, the royal family, getting blackmailed to hell by Jeffrey Epstein, sex trafficking by Jeffrey Epstein. It's all been reported. It's all been documented. It's right there on your screen. You can look it up for yourself. This is not salacious or crazy. It's there in the documents. Thousands of women who were victims of this, some of them public, some of them not. Many of them having lawsuits against Jeffrey Epstein and his estate to this very day. Jeffrey Epstein himself being put away by the feds, and Ghislaine Maxwell being put away by the feds. Like that, isn't that an admission that this was the operation? In their own paperwork, we'll read it to you right now. They say there are thousands and thousands of victims. Okay. But no clients? It doesn't make any sense. What happened here? The administration is releasing a video in both raw and enhanced versions that says it indicates nobody entered the area of the Manhattan prison where Epstein was held the night that he died in 2019. The video supports the medical examiner's finding that Epstein died by suicide, a two-page memo claims. The findings represent the first time in Trump's administration that has officially contradicted conspiracy theories about Epstein's activities and his death. Nothing I have told you is a conspiracy theory. None of it. All of it's real. All of it's verifiable. You just go check it right now. All of it. None of it's a conspiracy theory. Here's the video that they released of the cell and the cell block. The cell block is, and we've discussed this. Tucker Carlson did the best investigation of this. And even Tucker Carlson, in his show, who's a major skeptic on the Epstein issue, says, listen, there is pretty demonstrable proof that nobody entered the actual block itself when Epstein died. Do we have that clip, by the way? Yeah, do we have that? There's demonstrable evidence. Tucker straight up admits, listen, nobody went in or out. There were so many cameras that would have captured like a kill team or a kill squad, and there's no other ways. There's no ways in to these cells. It's a prison. It's created like this. Even Giuliani was on our show. He said, I built that prison. I designed it. I helped design the prison. There's no way into those cells. It's not like somebody like zip-lined in, right? That didn't happen. But nobody ever asked who was there being held with Epstein. Who were his cellmates? How could this have conceivably happened? Well, it could have just been housed with an assassin. He could have been housed with somebody, and he was actually housed with a serial strangler who could have absolutely snapped neck bones. It's like a bodybuilder, serial cop strangler who was housed with Epstein. He was his cellmate. But nobody did an interview. Here's Tucker's reporting at the time how strange this all was. Here we go.
No one came in or out of the tier, Barr said.
Therefore, Jeffrey Epstein killed himself. So let's consider that claim rationally. On the night of August 9th, Jeffrey Epstein was being held in the special housing unit of the Metropolitan Correctional Center in Manhattan, the most secure part of the city's federal lockup. It would be physically impossible for a stranger to get in and out of this facility without an electronic pass and without being seen by the countless cameras in place between the street and the locked 9th floor of the building. So if Jeffrey Epstein was murdered, he was not murdered by an intruder, someone who came into the tier. He was murdered by someone on his own cell block, obviously. There were 7 other cells on Epstein's tier, and each one housed dangerous criminals. So if you were looking for a killer, you would figure out who was in those cells. But no one seems to have thought of that or done it. The Bureau of Prisons refused to provide us with a list of the inmates on Epstein's tier. It's not clear how many of them were even interviewed by investigators, despite the fact that some of them were transferred out of the facility shortly after Epstein's death. That's a baffling oversight.
To this day, we don't know who was in Epstein's cell, except for one individual, Epstein's cellmate, ex-cop, convicted of killing 4 people through strangulation. Also a bodybuilder. This man. I don't have the full power of a taxpayer-funded investigation or anything, but it seems like a good interview. Just ask, what happened that night. But we have no on-camera interviews from anyone. What we have is this video. This was what was released yesterday. Crashed the entire DOJ website. I don't think it's even live to this moment, but you can, hopefully go check it out eventually. But this is a clip from it. It's an 11-hour video that shows that nobody went into or out of the cell block. And even Tucker Carlson says, okay, let's just follow that premise. You didn't interview anybody who was held there with him? All the cameras shut off? Well, if the cameras shut off, we have no idea who was entering Epstein's cell. We have no idea if it's actually Epstein's body that was in the cell. His brother says it wasn't. His brother said that he was either killed or he was evacuated. It's weird. Mark Epstein's his name. We hope to have him on the show someday. It'd be interesting to talk to him. But I guess we'll never know, because Jeffrey Epstein, no matter what, isn't with us anymore. And he just killed himself because there's no evidence against him. Yeah, this is the site right now. It still can't be reached. This is the Fed. This is the site that the Feds released this 11-hour tape from. It's been crashed. It's been crashed for 12 hours now. Why would you kill yourself? Why would you go through the trouble of killing yourself? Jeffrey Epstein was a billionaire. Private planes, private islands. He'd already skated on one federal charge. Why would you kill yourself? If there was no evidence against you, if there was no list, if there was nothing that was going to happen to you, why would you kill yourself? It defies the nature of who we know Jeffrey Epstein is and was. The whole thing makes absolutely zero sense, but it is a bit of an insult. Let me just read through the last little takeaway from this article, and I'll direct you to the DOJ, their words and their website. Hey, Alexa, I just want to confirm, is this memo signed and confirmed? Many are saying that this might have been a leaked memo, but I just want to get that bullet point. Yeah, okay. All right. The memo says nobody else, because you read this and you gasp. The memo says nobody else was involved in the Epstein case, and no one else will be charged. Epstein's associate, Ghislaine Maxwell, is serving 20-year sentence just down the road from us, where we're broadcasting here, actually, in a cushy white-collar resort prison. She was sentenced to 2 decades for child sex trafficking and related offenses. According to the memo, investigators closely examined footage from Epstein's Manhattan prison cell and found that nobody entered his cell. The footage was reviewed by Axios, couldn't be verified. Investigators found no incriminating client lists, no credible evidence that Epstein blackmailed prominent individuals, no evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties, the memo adds. Except for, of course, all of the evidence we've been talking about for the last hour that's publicly available. Imagine what's not publicly available. Imagine what they have on these. Here's some footage that the FBI took. Benny, where'd you get these photos? Are they AI? No, the FBI took them from inside of their raid of Epstein's townhouse. mansion, $61 million mansion in the Upper West Side in New York. Inside of that manila envelope right there in the last photo, inside of this manila envelope is a stack of passports with Epstein's photo, but not his name on them. Isn't that interesting? Different names, different passports, different nations. One of those other little velvet boxes, this is a box of diamonds. Where the hell did those come from? What's in the rest of the safe? It took them a long time to crack the safe, but you can see there a pile of CDs, hard drives, sitting up top of the safe. Here's a whole entire box of hard drives. Those are CDs marked nudes. Here's a box of hard drives that have evidence tape on them that the special agent in charge of the FBI said, we didn't put that tape there. Look at all those hard drives. We have video of the feds raiding Epstein's island. We have video of the feds walking away with entire MacBook towers wrapped in evidence tape. Look at that. You can see here in the window, look, that's the computer right there, right? It's a massive Mac screen. It's a massive rack and stack. It's being wrapped as evidence, being gone through. And you can see the boxes being taken out. Of course, they put up cardboard at the very end of the video when they notice that someone's watching. Where's it all go? I thought it was sitting on Pam Bondi's desk. I guess not. We have a great guest, Mike Benz. And I just want to, before we hop over to Benz, I just want to get one thing off my chest here. I know Bongino and I know Cash. I know Pam Bondi. They've been guests on the program. They've worked with us on various things through the years. They're not dishonest people. They're not liars, and they're not monsters. I know this. I've seen them up close, and I've worked with them. I got to be very careful when I say this because I'm not trying to piss people off, nor am I trying to make excuses. There are some situations that are so effed, some grenades whose pins have been pulled so long ago and are on the brink of exploding, and you get handed that sucker and you're screwed. And that's just the way it works sometimes, especially in PR, politics. These evil bastards, if I'm to guess, do you really think they're going to leave boxes of evidence incriminating themselves so they go to prison for the rest of their lives for what they did? They're the ones in charge. Remember the stuff with Epstein. 2008, 2007, and 6 was when that was being charged. So who was in charge then? Right? All the Bush people. Okay? They were the same. There's the same uniparty. True Zen in politics. True enlightenment in politics. True Zen is realizing that Michelle Obama and George W. Bush are part of the same political party. They're the same people. They all have the same friends. They want the same things. Jeffrey Epstein was a tool to get those things. And he got off during the Bush era. So that's not Trump. That's sure as hell not Kash Patel. That's when the first tranche of evidence was mysteriously disappeared and the federal charges just vanished because he belonged to Intel. Then Jeffrey Epstein, the next case gets brought in 2018, but that means they had all the evidence. They were acquiring all the evidence and preparing for the raid to get this box of evidence, right? They were preparing for this. This is in Trump term 1. Could this be in preparation to just wrap up their op? Yeah, totally. Listen, if you were running something like this and a guy like Trump miraculously wins the presidency, instead of having the guaranteed Epstein operator Hillary Clinton be your president, right? Imagine what would happen to Jeffrey Epstein if Hillary Clinton was president. He'd probably be vice president right now. Jeffrey Epstein would be in charge of the Department of Education right now if Hillary was serving or had spent 8 years as president, which was the plan. And then they hand off to Michelle Obama or Malia Obama, most likely. Yeah, Sasha Obama then becomes president, right? That was the plan. AOC, whatever. Trump gets in and they're like, we have to wrap up this op. We have to wrap it up because the wrong people will prosecute this and then they'll get us. So we have to kill him and tie up these loose ends because we're implicated. Based on what you know about the deep state, do you really believe that they were just going to let these boxes of smolder, they call it a smoking gun. So let's just, for lack of a better allegory, here's your photograph. Here's your smoking gun. A physical box of smoking guns that are all pointed at the careers of these bureaucrats that operated with Epstein. Do you really think they're going to just leave them sitting there to be found by a Donald Trump whose main claim to fame with Epstein was that he is the only person who helped the prosecution that should have been able to put Epstein away for life? We have it on camera. We have the lawyer. We have James Patterson. We have members of Mar-a-Lago. They all cop to it. They all say it. President Trump banned him on the spot and then worked with the prosecution to put Epstein away for life. That guy, who of course is not compromised here, if President Trump was on the Epstein list, trust me, we would have had it in 2015. If there was a scintilla of evidence against Trump on that list, it would have been out in 2015. It would have been out in 2020. It would have been out in 2024. There is nothing on Donald Trump in that list. It's probably why you don't have it, in fact. Or they would have just released the Trump part, right? How do you charge a case with no evidence? That's the question. And I'm playing devil's advocate here, and I know it's going to get me roasted in the comment section. But if Dan and Cash go in and there is no evidence because it's gone, just like the Alex Acosta emails. I'll have this for you. I can't wait for Benz to talk about this one. The Alex Acosta emails were all deleted from this time period. Isn't that amazing? So the guy that said, I was told that Epstein belonged to intelligence. This guy? ALX, I know you posted it. Ben's posted it, actually. All of the emails, poof, gone. They're gone. Isn't that amazing? No, this is not it. But that's okay. I know ALX has got it. So they've already done it. It's already been documented that all the evidence is vanished from Mr. I was told Epstein belongs to Intel. Like, how much more evidence is gone? Well, we've shown you the piles of them. There it is. Yeah. That's it. Wow. It just so happened that a data gap was discovered in Alex Acosta's emails for 11 months. That was the time span that he was charging Epstein, and all of that charging documentation, all of his communique with intel agencies, poof, gone. It's gone. So I've already destroyed the evidence. And so, yes, I am going to make a bit of a defense for the live grenade that was handed to a bunch of people that didn't do this. They weren't in power in 2007, in 2008, all the way through 2016. Then we all know what happened to Trump in the first administration. Then for the last 10 years nearly, the Bidens have had full run of everything. The Bidens, please. Hillary Clinton through proxy Obama. And you really think that they were just going to let the evidence sit there? And so what are Cash and Dan left to do? With no evidence, what can you do? It's a live grenade that was handed to them. And I'm not saying it was handled perfectly. It sure as hell wasn't. I got a lot of buddies who stood up with binders in one of the more humiliating sabotages I've ever seen in this profession. But I'm saying that you can't charge someone if all the evidence has been destroyed. It's an old mafia tactic. It's an old mob tactic. There's only one man who's been calling out these tactics from the wilderness for a very long time, and that is the great Mike Benz. Ladies and gentlemen, we are honored to have Mike join us today. I wonder if Mike belongs to Intel. Let's ask. Pretty angry today, Mike. I don't know, man. Some days you just got to take the black pill. But I'm looking forward to hearing your takes on this. Let's begin with Jeffrey Epstein belonged to Intel. What do you think, Mike?
Forget it, Benny. It's Chinatown. It's
That's right. I look forward to getting the razor in my getting the razor in my face soon. Yeah. Okay. Well, what happens next?
No, it's this is the great unanswered question, and it's also I think what you're expressing is what so many people feel on this, and I understand the frustration. I feel the same way that you do about Dan and Cash, and I think they're doing a phenomenal job on what is their traditional role, which is cleaning up crime and not engaging in domestic weaponization. I think when attacks pop off in the country, we don't really, in just a few short months, we really no longer have to worry about whether our own FBI was setting us up. I think this was a constant shadow over Christopher Wray under Trump 1, obviously for the FBI for 60 years practically. And they've done that with very few friends on the inside, given how outnumbered they are by the FBI rank and file. I think there is a intense desire from the MAGA base to have accountability for past FBI malfeasance beyond simply doing the job of federal law enforcement. And so it's a very heavy burden, I think, on senior management for things that they are not, which is a little bit above and beyond what the typical day-to-day duties of the job are. I have long believed that the Epstein story is not so much an FBI story as it is a DOJ and CIA story, as well as the international networks that have been talked about so much. And so when the initial claims from Dan and Cash on this came out, my thought process was, well, you're not going to find anything at the FBI layer here, because if this was CIA, you're going to have it shielded from FBI so that it doesn't give a predicate for DOJ action. But DOJ will be the holder of all the interagency chatter, all of the interagency cables, all of the interagency dialogue. And so what we're hearing from the news last night is a much more serious and final opinion, it coming from Pam Bondi. Now, I still have questions about how exactly how official this is, frankly, because Axios evidently got an exclusive. They posted what looked like an official DOJ document with the news story they published, but then within a few hours, the official document was a missing link. And I know that folks like Tom Fitton from Judicial Watch had been actively FOIAing the Justice Department for these documents for months, if not years. And I know that Tom Fitton has felt a little bit of a stab in the back, that he feels that Axios was given an exclusive for things that should have just been responded to in a FOIA request from Judicial Watch. I mean, we can get to all that, but as to your direct question about whether or not Epstein did or didn't belong to intelligence, this is one of these unanswered questions that remains very much a slap in the face. I think to understand the Epstein story, you need to go back to the 1980s, and at least back to, as you mentioned, the 2008 case when Jeffrey Epstein was arrested the first time, and one of the strangest plea deals in DOJ history was struck. The plea deal for Jeffrey Epstein was struck by Alex Acosta and the Miami DOJ before the FBI even finished its investigation. So they rushed this plea deal, which effectively got Jeffrey Epstein off before they even got most of the relevant evidence. At the time, there was a subpoena for Jeffrey Epstein's hard drives and computers, and defense counsel had been fighting that in court. They struck the plea deal before they even got the computers. In fact, one of the lead prosecutor, I believe Maria Villafana, had bitterly fought Alex Acosta on this plea deal. She was the lead prosecutor on the case. There's email traffic with the senior lieutenants at DOJ saying, "Why are you meeting with defense counsel in private? How can you attempt to strike a plea deal before we've even concluded our investigation? We're still finding witnesses. We still don't even have most of the key evidence because the defense counsel are refusing to turn over the hard drives and computers. How can you make a plea deal when you don't even know what's on their computers? This is outrageous." And she was run over. She was, according to some of the email traffic from her conversations with the DOJ lieutenants that came out in a 350-page DOJ Office of Professional Responsibility report later, she was basically threatened for speaking up. And then Alex Acosta, who was the top dog, as you mentioned, 11 months. It was almost 11 and a half. This is basically the entire year's worth of emails, of incoming emails to Alex Acosta, turned up mysteriously gone. As soon as the Justice Department moved to look at them, they were gone, daddy gone. I mean, this is like when Operation Crossfire Hurricane happened, and then suddenly all the text messages and emails all died at FBI. Once again, the FBI is, where evidence goes to die. And just like the system migration, server migration ended up eating all the inside evidence with Crossfire Hurricane, they did it just with Jeffrey Epstein. And no one can explain it. No one's attempted to retrieve the emails from there. It's like every time you know that a server is being migrated at DOJ, someone did some really nasty shish kebab. And the fact is this whole process has been so shady, and it's been so high profile now for so long that I don't know what they're expecting at the Trump DOJ level. This is long-term indigestion. Obviously, because Jeffrey Epstein is such a nasty figure, you can make up stories about him that have no basis in reality, and a lot of people are going to believe it because it's Epstein. And I understand that the mere fact of the scale of the conspiracy theories around Epstein kind of put the PR side of law enforcement in a bind. They want to be responsive to the facts of the case. They do not want to be responsive to public opinion. Justice should be blind, which is the right attitude. The issue is if you don't show your work, if you don't show us what you looked at in order to make your decision, we can't trust your work. We trust work, not words. And, it's been 6 months of the Trump administration. It's been half a year, and this was a major campaign issue. And we have not seen what DOJ has seen. We have not seen what FBI has seen. We have not seen anything from the CIA side of this. And meanwhile, all of Trump world sort of touches Epstein world from strange angles, which is another topic on this that maybe I can pause if you want to get to. But as to your immediate question about was Epstein an intelligence asset in some respect, I think undeniably the answer on that is yes. And the fact that we have seen really no attempt, or at least good faith attempt, to even humor the American people. What did DOJ query from CIA on this? They're going to come out with this conclusory statement about there's no anything. Okay, well, what did you ask John Ratcliffe? What queries did you put to the CIA system? At least let us make the excuses for you that you got stonewalled or there was nothing there, because we see what you see. Why top down edicts without any sort of accompanying set of data dumps? Where's our WikiLeaks? Where's our Twitter files? Why do we get more transparency from, Elon Musk taking over a private company in terms of federal government documents and emails than we get from our own democratically elected government?
Why would Jeffrey Epstein kill himself if he's innocent?
Well, of course, what they're saying is that, he didn't kill himself and there's no evidence on that. And this is, another thing is...
No, Mike, they're saying that he did kill himself. He absolutely killed himself.
Right, that's
the feds are saying he killed himself, right. and he killed himself for nothing because we have nothing on him. Because there was no case. Even though we found him guilty already of sex trafficking and Ghislaine Maxwell guilty of sex trafficking, there's no case and there's no clients.
Right.
And, the other problem I have with this is that it does seem like it's entirely created. This seemed like the deep state, whatever terminology you want to use, whatever pejorative you want to use, it seems like they're pulling one over. Everything from the Binder release that had redacted information in it that was already public, like that was just a spitting in the face, right? That was an insult, okay, to the intelligence of everybody who received one of those binders. Friends of the show. I know that you received one of those binders for your birthday, so happy late birthday, Mike.
Thank you.
This entire thing seems to be concocted to embarrass the Trump administration and to erode trust, to further erode trust with their supporters who thought that we'd actually see something here. And Mike, whoever leaked this to Axios, to break it through left-wing media is also an insult to us. And yet again colors this release as something that cannot be trusted. It's just been a bungle after bungle after bungle, and it's frustrating.
Right. Well, this gets me to the question of, was this actually, was this given to Axios, or was this sort of a rogue inside employee, or, in a way, almost hero inside employee who probably leaked it because they were stunned by it and maybe wanted to, I don't know, stop it or at least put some pressure on it. Because they didn't name the source. It's not like this person was made a hero from it. I find it a little hard to believe that Axios would have voluntarily gotten this exclusive. They didn't get any statements on the record from DOJ officials about it, which suggests to me that it was a leak. If DOJ really wanted to give them the exclusive and they were proud and stood behind their work on this, you would typically see quotes from DOJ officials corroborating or providing additional color beyond what was published, and there was none of that, which leads me to believe that it was a leak. But I just come back to this point that I don't know what they're expecting in terms of the base's feelings about this. The Jeffrey Epstein died in 2019, and this was a campaign issue in 2024. It will be a campaign issue in 2028. It will be a campaign issue in 2032. It was a very, very strange sequence of events where as dark and as wide as the networks around Epstein are, you see our federal government constantly losing the kind of evidence they would never lose if they were prosecuting us.
Yes, Mike, the evidence that would have been splashed and carved into granite if they could get after a Mike Benz. Boy, man, they would have made sure that was plastered and printed on a daily basis on the front of the New York Times if you were part of this list.
So I want answers from the CIA on this. Why have I heard absolutely nothing? And
Can
this
you unpack
again,
that, please? Can you unpack
yes.
that? So, like, why is the CIA the skeleton key here?
Well, so starting with what we've covered, and then I'll trace it into the wider webs here. So, in 2008, the sweetheart deal with Epstein was struck over the objections of the FBI. The DOJ basically reached into the case, met directly with the defense lawyers for Epstein, who were basically the highest paid defense lawyers you can buy. Many of them had personal relations with the prosecutors. One of the defense counsel had dated one of the DOJ officials, and they had all sorts of personal connections. And then Alex Acosta was then being interviewed by the White House transition team in 2016 for 2017 for a cabinet level role. Alex Acosta went from being the Jeffrey Epstein deal negotiator and the guy who overrode the FBI to give this sweetheart deal to Epstein to being a cabinet level secretary for Trump 1 in the Department of Labor. Now, the Department of Labor is another kind of strange place in the U.S. government. This is for unions. Organized crime and unions move together like peanut butter and jelly do. Alex Acosta had also been the dean of the law school for Florida International University, which is a major CIA recruiting hub. Folks like Juan Guaido, for example, who was the CIA-backed candidate for Venezuela, is now at FIU. FIU is a very famous recruiting ground for CIA operations in Latin America. And it's also close to where Jeffrey Epstein lived when he was also in South Florida. Jeffrey Epstein runs through those same Latin America CIA networks, I should note. It was Jeffrey Epstein that was working with Adnan Khashoggi, the CIA-backed weapons dealer for Iran-Contra, very close to the Bush family and the Saudi royal family. So Jeffrey Epstein is connected to Iran-Contra, the CIA gun running and drug running operation from the early 1980s. In 1985, Jeffrey Epstein effectively took over from Arthur Shapiro. Arthur Shapiro was the tax attorney for Les Wexner. Les Wexner, the billionaire who was the head of limited brands, the Victoria's Secret. At one point, this was the largest retail chain in all of America. And Jeffrey Epstein, after Arthur Shapiro, the tax lawyer for Les Wexner, was gunned down in a Chicagoland-style murder in Columbus, Ohio, in 1985, the day before he was set to testify to a grand jury IRS investigation. See, basically, he had run the Wexner estate's tax and accounting, and then the day he had been dogged by the IRS for about 7 years. The day before he was set to testify, he was mysteriously murdered. It was at that point that Jeffrey Epstein appeared in the picture and began to effectively work his way up to getting power of attorney over the entire Epstein estate, and then mysteriously go on to manage billions or hundreds of millions of dollars for the Wexner network through there. Epstein then became involved even more directly in intelligence adjacent work. He was involved in the negotiation of the relocation of the very Iran-Contra CIA airline company. This is Continental Air Services, Air America. The CIA proprietary airlines in Miami that closed up after the Iran-Contra scandal in the 1980s. They were moved to Columbus, Ohio, the hometown of Les Wexner. That move of the CI proprietary airline was negotiated by Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, what kind of access could you and I get to do that sort of thing? And that was said to do economic development for Columbus, Ohio, because it was moved to the Rickenbacker Air Force Base in order to basically give the Wexner retail brands access to markets in Hong Kong and faraway distances like that. Well, Hong Kong is another one of these, very frequent black market CIA traffic zones. The Hong Kong was taken over by the British through the Opium Wars and became a major narco trafficking zone through there. And once again, you're back to sort of guns and drugs. And the fact is you and I can't get that sort of access as normal civilians. Adnan, you and I can't just sort of represent Adnan Khashoggi and CIA-backed, gun runners, and then go on to have all these connections to both the Bill Clinton machine and then the Donald Trump machine. I mean, Jeffrey Epstein really flew too close to the sun in the 1990s when he became the money bundler for Bill Clinton in the 1990s and was, flying around the world with Clinton. And the fact is Epstein's adjacency to all of these intelligence nodes, combined with the head DOJ official saying that he was told to back off Epstein because he belonged to intelligence, it's above my pay grade. Then back to the Acosta story here. So Alex Acosta was then questioned about this when I believe it was the Daily Beast reported that that's what he told the transition team. And Alex Acosta's response to being questioned about that intelligence statement was very curious. He didn't deny it when he was asked about it publicly. He said, "I'm not allowed to talk about that. There are DOJ rules about ethics rules about what I'm allowed to say publicly. But a lot of people are taking what I said out of context and going down rabbit holes. But I'm not allowed to either confirm or deny." Now, why would you not be able to deny if that was not the case? That was over 10 years before. He was questioned about that in 2019. The case had already been closed. The settlement had already been reached. It had been 11 years. And, if this was something that was fully untrue, there's no reason that you can't say, yeah, no, he didn't. He was not a CIA asset or an asset of another foreign government. But the fact is, we don't even know who Alex Acosta talked to. Now the final wrap up on this, and the official story is that in 2020, the Justice Department, responding to the heat of the Alex Acosta affair, did this 350-page written report. This is how we know about the 11-month data gap in Acosta's emails. And there's one footnote in the 350-page document. This is all we've gotten in the 6 years since Epstein did or didn't kill himself about the CIA connection. One footnote in a 350-page document that said from DOJ. Now, this was Bill Barr's DOJ. Bill Barr spent the first 7 years of his career in the CIA. He was referred to as the CIA's mop-up man by the Washington Post for his role in covering up Iran-Contra and the CIA's role in that. One footnote, and it says, we asked Acosta about whether or not there was truth to Daily Beast reporting about Jeffrey Epstein being potentially an intelligence asset for helping the FBI on a related white-collar financial crime investigation. And Acosta said, we asked him if he had knowledge about that. And he said no. Acosta said no. and that we offered Acosta a classified briefing room if he had more to say, and he had nothing more to say. Now, that gives you absolutely nothing. First of all, softball question of the century. Do you have any knowledge about Epstein being, an intelligence asset in a unrelated white-collar financial crime investigation? Well, first of all, even if you were to ask him, do you have knowledge that Jeffrey Epstein is an intelligence asset? Any defense attorney worth his salt will tell you, even if you were told that he belonged to intelligence, the answer to that question is no. You do not have knowledge. You have been told something secondhand through hearsay. You took some action on the basis of it, but you don't have firsthand personal knowledge of it. That's all we get. We don't get any questions about, who is it who had did you ever have any conversations about Jeffrey Epstein and his role in intelligence? Did anyone speak to you at CIA? Did anyone speak to you at foreign intelligence services overseas about no evidentiary trail, no list of who spoke to him about these matters, no questioning about what was said. It was like it was set up to fail. And for that to be the end of the story. And then Alex Acosta disappeared after that. He was a high profile figure. He was the dean of a major law school, partner at a major firm, cabinet level secretary. Now he's a ghost. And so all of this is happening in the context of what appears to be complete lack of enthusiasm for finding out the answer. And this gets back to the question of how many folks in Trump world, might be is the reason there's no action on really trying to nail down answers around the intelligence side of this because there's no evidence or because there's no appetite. And because they've not showed us any of the evidence that they've seen in order to make the determination, it's hard not to conclude it's because there's no appetite.
That's something that is unnervingly frustrating, Mike, that they didn't talk us through their process. They didn't show us their process here. After all of the yapping and all of the talking on TV, and they did a lot of talking on TV about it. The documents are all on my desk. So many files, a dump truck pulled up with Jeffrey Epstein evidence. They couldn't show us anything. And you brought up Bill Barr, and I just want to take a quick deviation here into the origin story of Jeffrey Epstein. Because it actually goes back to Bill Barr's father in such a strange way, who was one of the founding members of the CIA. And so if you're going to talk about the nodes of connection between Epstein and the CIA, let's go back to Donald Barr, who operated the OSS during World War II, which is, of course, where the CIA sprung from. Then he became the head of the Dalton School. Then he hired Jeffrey Epstein, in spite of the fact that Jeffrey Epstein was a failing student and didn't have a degree himself, groomed Jeffrey Epstein, and connected them with Ghislaine Maxwell. So it's actually Bill Barr's father who is the origin story of all of this, and also, and it's worth noting, wrote a book called Space Relations, where a group of elitist pedophiles run an entire planet through blackmail. And it sounds like a movie script, and it probably is. Does feel like we're living actually in a simulation at times, and here it is. There's the proof. So maybe you could take just a quick deviation here into what is Bill Barr's role in this operation. If you're going to talk about connections here that are going to be very uncomfortable, obviously, for some people in Trump world, is this background story check out, Mike? The floor is yours.
Yeah, that's one of the excuses that was sort of made for the DOJ the first time around, was that it was just such a patently obvious conflict of interest with Bill Barr that the thought process was with Matt Gaetz or Pam Bondi that we would be able to get more transparency because of the perception of Bill Barr doing the blocking and tackling the first time around. Jeffrey Epstein died on Bill Barr's watch. As you mentioned, Donald Barr goes back to the very origins of the CIA, and then Bill Barr started his career in the CIA. He actually, in his own biography, brags that he told his high school guidance counselor that what he wanted to be when he grew up was the director of the CIA. And then Bill Barr only became disenchanted with the CIA career when Stansfeld Turner, Jimmy Carter CIA director, who massively handicapped the CIA. This was during the Halloween massacre in 77, 78, when the CIA was basically handcuffed and then had massive staff reductions and budget cuts. And it was at that point that Bill Barr became disenchanted with the CIA and the direction from the Carter administration, and then went on to become a lawyer and then the head of the Justice Department twice. According to reporting from Terry Reid, one of the sort of mystery figures in the Iran-Contra scandal of the early 1980s under Reagan, Bill Barr was actively involved in Iran-Contra, the CIA gun-running, money laundering, drug-running operation of the early 1980s, and had a code name Robert Johnson. If you read the book Compromised by Terry Reid, which was written well before the Jeffrey Epstein affair ever popped off. This was basically a tell-all from the 1990s. And again, that's the same network involved in Jeffrey Epstein himself. As I mentioned, Jeffrey Epstein involved in the Iran-Contra affair through Adnan Khashoggi and through the Continental Air Services and Air America CIA proprietaries that were used in that operation that Epstein negotiated to come to Columbus, Ohio. And so you had an immediate conflict of interest with Bill Barr when Bill Barr said that Epstein killed himself, or that, the case was basically closed. I think a lot of people like myself said, well, what do you expect? You got the CIA's mop-up man as the head of the Justice Department, and his friggin' father worked directly with Epstein. There is a kind of inescapable like father, like son in these sorts of things. It tends to be a family business. And, but I don't know how much, for example, Pam Bondi was the attorney general of Florida. And Florida was the exact jurisdiction that Jeffrey Epstein spent his career in and was prosecuted in. And I don't know Pam Bondi. I've never met her. I'm not making any sort of accusations here. It's just awfully convenient that everyone seems to know each other on this. And there's a very simple fix, which is show your work. Why can't we see, what Tulsi did with JFK files? A lot of people were upset that there was no smoking gun, for example, to be found in the March files for JFK. I was ecstatic about that. I thought that was one of the gold standard for how you do federal declassifications. Everything was fully unredacted. We got hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of files for independent researchers to add to our body of knowledge, even things that were, not directly related to, the assassination. We got all the Operation Mongoose files. The fact is the Epstein network is something that, given the extent of what we know from the criminal side, is something that we need answers about well beyond an FBI prosecution. And oftentimes, because of declassifications or because of court documents, even if you can't prove something criminally, what you can provide to the public, for example, like what is in a DOJ filing, provides kind of metadata, if you will. It's it's something that allows independent researchers to build on what's already known in order to make their own case if the DOJ feels they have insufficient evidence to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. But what's so curious about this is there wasn't even an attempt to do so. So I don't know how this DOJ can expect anything but long-term resentment and anger from the base when there isn't even an attempt to say, well, listen, we looked at everything. Here's what we looked at. And if you look at this too, you'll make the same conclusion. They didn't even do that second step. They just said, trust me, bro. And it's not there. Well, show me what you looked at so I can decide whether or not you're bullshitting me. I want to see what you looked at so that way I know what you didn't look at. If I know here are the 30,000 emails we looked at, we put them in a big Tulsi Gabbard, ODNI, JFK style, WikiLeaks style. You don't even need to index it for us. The internet will do the work. Show us what you queried, CIA. Tell us who you talked to. What were the names of the case officers? What conversations did you have with John Ratcliffe? What documents did you go back and look at from 2008? Are any of those declassifiable? If not, describe them or publish redacted forms and remove sources and methods. We want to know what you saw so that we agree with what you say. And you telling us what you saw will be helpful to know what you didn't see so that we can decide whether or not there's a cover up here instead of having to assume it.
Here's an image to your point. It's Jeffrey Epstein's safe. This image is taken, it's not AI, it's taken by the FBI, and the special agent in charge testified in court that manila envelope included many passports from different nations with Jeffrey Epstein's photograph, but not his real name. That's not child predation material. I don't need any more. I don't need any of that stuff like on the internet, right? Of course, none of that stuff should ever be on the internet. We're not asking to see any type of like horrible victimization photos. I don't want that. It's horrifying. It's despicable. It's wrong. Obviously, we don't need any of that. Why not just show us all the passports that he has? How does Jeffrey Epstein get a bunch of passports from different nations, pretty controlled operation there, without his real name on it? That's not taking advantage of any victim or any horrifying thing. Like you could just show us that. Next to it is a velvet box of diamonds. Well, where the hell those diamonds come from exactly? That's unique. Like, could you have just showed us some of that evidence? This is all just sitting there, stacks of physical evidence, Mike, that we know that we have. And it's all just sitting there. I get it. I get it. I don't want horrible images of like young victimized people on the internet ever. So I'm not calling for that. But you're betraying our intelligence and spitting in our faces to say that the tens of thousands, and here's some of them, the tens of thousands of hard drives and CDs that have these images on them don't include anyone. That there were no clients. That there were no other people on them.
They're live recordings of Weezer concerts, actually. That's all.
That's right. You're insulting us. You're insulting us. Sure, some of them probably did have Epstein in them, and we already know he's a scumbag. Okay, got it. But like, could you release the names of the other people involved? Like none of it. You can't release even the passports. I guess what I'm saying, Mike, is you're right. They could just show us all the physical. Here's a bunch of physical evidence that we got in all of his homes and stuff. Here it is. Here's the emails. Here's why we're not charging anybody else. Here's all that we have. Maybe stuff's been destroyed. We're not sure. But we know that you have footage like this of his little St. James getting raided and us carrying out boxes. Right there. Pause it, please. That's a wrapped up MacBook tower that has terabytes of storage information, and they're wrapping it up for evidence. You can see it clear as day right there. Nobody ever asked what's on that computer? You can't. That's a piece of physical evidence. Where is that computer exactly? Where does that exist? Can you show us that? We haven't seen anything. No pictures from the raid. We have seen no pictures from the Little St. James raid. So to your point, like it's eroding further the trust. And the JFK release was a masterclass. It was fascinating. There was actually quite a bit of like juicy and very embarrassing stuff we talked about on the show. And so I'm left to ask this final question, Mike. It's the last question that I have for today. The last question we have time for today. Is this a noble lie? Is this a grenade that had the pin pulled and has been ticking and is now smoldering and has been handed to so many people so far down the line, and it just gets dropped in the lap of Bongino and Cash, and before it explodes, they just got to duck and cover? Is that what's happening here? What is your final takeaway for this?
This is going to sound a little strange, but I almost wish it was the noble lie. At least people put effort into it. You know, when there's a noble lie, there's usually, a lot more work that goes into the cover up that at least attempts to deal with the underlying public pushback. In this case, I mean, let me just make a recommendation, I guess, to the Trump admin, because they're doing so much good work, and they're going to get pilloried for this, and kind of rightly with the rollout. But it's not to take away. I don't want anybody else in the job at FBI. I don't want the MAGA base to because neither Cash nor Dan need to be doing this. They're taking a major haircut. They're taking all the flack. It's a thankless job. They deserve us saying thank you for all the great stuff they've done to end present day weaponization. The thing is, this Epstein thing just gets to the heart and soul of what the American people, it's kind of the perfect embodiment of government, of perceptions of government corruption, because this feeling that elites can get away with anything.
Yes.
They could even, traffic children in broad daylight with a friggin' Disney island. And if they know the prosecutors, or they're connected to intelligence, or they're, donors to politicians, they are above the law. And for the law department, our Justice Department, to handle it this way, it almost makes it impossible for the admin to get credit for the good stuff they do, because people will just, losses loom larger than gains. And my recommendation on this is, why not have a task force, a public task force, every Friday, take questions from the public. Let Benny Johnson, let random independent journalists, let mainstream media journalists take an hour every Friday for the next 6 months and call it the Epstein Investigation Task Force, and take our questions, be responsive to them, follow up. And because here's the other part of this is, everyone knows that the people who know the most about any criminal investigation are not the heads of the Justice Department or FBI or CIA. It's just not. The CIA is busy dealing with Ukraine and Russia and Iran and Israel. The FBI is busy dealing with fentanyl and ICE riots. The DOJ is busy with the friggin' civil rights division reform. Pam Bondi is not the keeper of knowledge on this. But we know that, or at least there should be, case officers, investigators who are the ones who are in these files day and night. Have the most knowledgeable person from the DOJ, from FBI, from CIA, have them meet us, the public, time box it. Say, listen, we're not going to take up the whole admin on this Epstein thing. We're trying to do a million other things, but we're going to give you 6 months, 3 months, whatever it is, and answer our questions live. Put yourself on, like, if you really stand behind this, you should be able to do what Trump does and take our questions live. we knew that, Biden stopped. He disappeared. No one knew where he was for the entire final year of his presidency. Everyone knew that's because he wouldn't be able to handle our questions. Kamala Harris turned down Joe Rogan interview, biggest interview in the world, because being there, taking the questions for that long, probably couldn't stand the heat in the kitchen. If you really stand behind your findings, you would talk to us. So set up a task force and talk to us. Then there's no hiding behind, you can't expect the head of the agency to know this. She's got so much else to do. Okay, send us your best man or woman. Put the top investigator that you have on the inside. Show it to us on the outside. That way, when we ask questions, we know we're getting the best answers available, not a political document designed to make us go away.
I mean, these documents are available. The problem is that they're in total conflict with each other. The FBI special agent in charge testified, listen, there was an entire control room in New York where Jeffrey Epstein could operate all of the hidden cameras. There were over 171 hidden cameras in one little mansion, I think funded by the State Department or owned by the State Department. Very strange there.
Yes,
that's
right.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, he got a State Department. When the U.S. government seized the second largest residential building in New York from the government of Iran, they leased it immediately to Jeffrey Epstein, who then subleased it to the attorney from the Pizza Connection and French Connection drug cartel cases.
Totally normal, Mike. I call that a Tuesday afternoon. That's what I do. I don't know what you do, how you spend your working days, but that's what I do. I seize government properties from Iran and then lease it through the State Department.
State Department's your landlord. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mike, for your clarity on this and for your wise advice. I really hope the administration takes that advice. We certainly are taking that advice. You'll see a series here, Mike, that we're going to be launching where we take these principles and we have live questions from the audience. We're going to go and do live streams, and we're going to do exactly this. We're going to go into their offices, and we're going to do live questions from the audience. And we're going to promote it and hype it so that people can come in, and then those questions will be asked live from the chat. And that's like a way to show transparency. Nobody ever questions Trump on this stuff because Trump's standing there 4 or 5 hours a day taking questions. I asked Trump 5 questions last week in Alligator Alcatraz. And he was waiting. He was excited to answer literally anything you throw at him. Hungry alligator. And nobody ever questions him on that stuff. Like, that's why he has such faith and confidence with people. But this is, you're right. There's an absolute crisis of confidence in this. And we hope it gets better. I have a feeling we'll be seeing more of it. And I have a feeling you'll be seeing a lot more of Mike Benz when you follow him right here. He's got that sweet 1M followers. You got to follow Mike Benz on X. Possibly one of the fastest growing X accounts out there, in fact. Mike, again, happy belated birthday. Godspeed. Thank you for telling the truth, man.
Thank you, Benny. You too.
Man, it's been a long couple days. We've released 3 mini docs over the last week. Just want to do a massive shout out live to our production team here at the company, our growing production team who's doubled in size this year, and maybe we'll double again by the end of the year. That's the way it's looking, and we're very thankful for them. They've done amazing work, tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of views on independent content, independent documentary content over the last week, and I'm just very, very proud of that capacity. Get ready, much more to come from that. Ladies and gentlemen, to pull all that off, along with our regularly published content and stream, it takes a little bit of stress and quite a bit of energy and a lot of late hours. And so when I get home, I like to recharge with my Bond Charge red light mask. I wear it when my kids have gone to bed because it scares them. And so I'm just going to say that up off the bat. But it is so good. It feels great. It's the red light that I am deprived of entirely when I'm sitting my days in this studio, surrounded by blue light. A lot of people don't even get sunlight at all in their days. Maybe you live in environments and climates that it's gray. That's where I grew up in Iowa. It was like gray for like 6 straight months where you didn't see the sunshine. This is just wonderful for you. It's the way God intended it. God intended you to have red light. It's healing. It's wonderful for your skin, wrinkles, fine lines, acne, relaxation, razor burns. I have all that. The list is endless. Bond Charge's red light face mask is easy to use. 10 to 20 minutes a day. You can plug it in. Stay looking young, ladies and gentlemen. It's sleek and lightweight. You can travel with it. In fact, I did. We went to the Trump Hotel this past weekend. You can have younger looking skin and less breakouts. You can go to bondcharge.com/Benny and use the coupon code Benny, save 15%. That's BONCHARGE.com/Benny. Use coupon code Benny to save 15%. These statements and products have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, or cure any disease. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, somebody who's trying to cure the disease of rhinos in the Senate, and not just rhinos, like people that are just actively corrupt in our United States Senate, is the great Nate Morris. He's a candidate for the United States Senate in Kentucky, looking to replace Mitch McConnell. He has a banger of a viral ad out. I know we're going to play it, but join us in welcoming the man who's taking out the trash in Kentucky, Nate Morris. Nate, welcome to the program. You have an unenviable day here because we've been raging for the last, 2 straight hours about a government cover-up on Epstein. And so anyway, slightly off topic, but there's a lot of garbage in Washington, D.C., a lot of trash. We want to see that trash taken out, and you're part of that. Tell us about your candidacy, Nate.
Absolutely, Benny. Thank you so much for having me on the show. It's great to be with you. I've been a fan of yours for a long time. And look, I'm running for the United States Senate to replace Mitch McConnell. And Benny, you know, Mitch McConnell has been in the Senate for over 40 years. And he has absolutely tried to sabotage President Trump at every chance he's gotten. And he's been the epitome of what this Washington swamp is all about. And that's career politicians enriching themselves, hanging around the hoop for way too long. And Benny, look, I'm not a politician. I've never run for office. I'm an outsider, and I made my money in garbage. And I often tell people that's how great this country is that if you can make money with trash, there's nothing more American than that. And I want to take, the entrepreneurial spirit that I learned as a business guy, take that to Washington. And as you know, Benny, the trash business is a very, very tough industry. I'm sure you like The Sopranos. And, that is the Soprano business. That was what Tony Soprano did for a living. These are the toughest people in the world that occupied the space that I'm coming out of. And I think it's perfectly fitting to take on the swamp, to take on the establishment. And that's what our candidacy is all about in Kentucky.
It was a great ad. I love a good viral ad. This was just a thing of beauty, throwing out the Mitch McConnell stand up there. Okay, so since we're on the trash, it says we're on the trash. I've seen this before, Nate. I've seen this, brother. Where you wrap a trash truck. I hope it becomes normal in politics. I saw Trump do it. You must have had quite the reaction to seeing a President Trump wrapped garbage truck. How did Trump do as a trash man?
Look, I think it's fantastic. And I think what President Trump has spoken for his entire career, if you go back to the 1980s, he has been focused on the American worker. And that's what's been so inspiring to me. He's had tremendous success. I think one of the legendary entrepreneurs in the history of our country, if not the history of the world. And he has consistently been beating the drum of the American worker. And look, I think that is what's compelled me to get into this race as well. I mean, Benny, 19 of my family members worked in an auto plant. When things like NAFTA happened, we saw our economy get gutted in the middle of the country. And we saw those manufacturing jobs leave places like Kentucky and the industrial Midwest. I was raised by a single mom. My family, we've been fighting, since I can remember for everything we have. And I think President Trump getting on that truck signaled to the rest of America that he's going to fight for the people that do jobs that often get forgotten. And it's things like the guys that pick up the trash. It's all the jobs that get overlooked in our economy. And that's what MAGA is all about, is celebrating the folks that have been left behind and have been forgotten, and giving them a platform to finally be heard.
It was so iconic. It's hard to really find your favorite iconic moment from 2024. I got to tell you, as far as like unscripted campaign moments that didn't involve a bullet miraculously going past the president's head, I think this is it for me, man. This is just gold. And you have it in your viral. You channeled this in your viral ad. It's great. It is doing really well. Amazing numbers, and that's not normal. Obviously, this is going to be a contentious race. Mitch McConnell has quite a legacy of failure. Can you talk about how you're going to be different than Mitch?
Yeah, Benny, I think one of the most telling things about this race is that, we were the last to get in. So the two guys that were in the race before we announced, Andy Barr and Daniel Cameron, these guys are nothing but puppets for Mitch McConnell. Both these guys said that Mitch McConnell was their mentor. I mean, Andy Barr said that Mitch McConnell was his mentor 10 months ago. This is a 50-year-old man. I don't know many 50-year-old men that still have mentors. I think at that point in life, you're supposed to be mentoring others. But that's how much they think of Mitch McConnell. And if these guys were to get in the Senate, it would be more of the same. It would be another 40 years of Mitch McConnell, because their cronies, their operatives, their lobbyists, all the people that have been surrounding Mitch Inc. and the McConnell apparatus, the McConnell mafia, they're looking for ways to continue to enrich themselves for another go. And I think that's one of the things that we're standing for in this campaign. We are the complete antithesis of what Mitch has been about. We are the 180, the clean break. And I think that's what the voters are hungry for. They know that Mitch has stayed way too long. And he's been a thorn to the president since 2016. And I think every Kentucky primary voter, they understand that.
We had a source send us this image of Mitch McConnell being wheeled through the airport in a wheelchair. We're not trying to beat up on an old man, but I think the people of Kentucky and the people of America, quite frankly, deserve to not have a geriatric class making decisions for us. Just seems like by nature, the longer you live inside of this system of Washington, D.C., the more corrupt you are going to get. It's like a guarantee. But then also, the longer that you live, the less you're going to be thinking about the here and now, the less you're going to be thinking about somebody's aspirations like 50 years from now, because you're not going to be here. It seems morally wrong. Are you in favor of term limits, Nate?
Absolutely, Benny. I think that, look, everyone has an expiration date, no matter what you do. If you're a CEO, if you're a worker of any kind, there's a certain amount of time that you put in and you take your retirement. And I think that Mitch McConnell certainly didn't get that memo. He'd been there a very, very long time, and he'd enriched himself for generations. I mean, Benny, this is a guy that came to the Senate broke, didn't have two nickels to rub together. And now he's one of the richest senators, worth, I think last report, about $100 million. And so I think it's absolutely preposterous that we have politicians that are getting rich, that are making their money off of our system, off of your tax dollars, the taxpayers' money. And look, Betty, I don't need this job. I've done very well. I built a company with $10,000 on a credit card, took it public at $2 billion. I don't need this job. I want to serve. I want to go and shake things up. I want to stand with President Trump and bring something totally different. And both these two guys that are in the race before we announced, they need this job. I don't know what they would be doing if they weren't running for office, because they actually need the job. And both these guys haven't had a job outside of government or never met a payroll. And that's the thing that I think is very alarming, is that when you've been in the real world, images like what you just showed of Mitch McConnell are absolutely unacceptable. The market does not tolerate the ability not to perform or to be checked out, at various parts in your life. So, look, everyone's got an expiration date. I think 2 terms was good for George Washington. And I think a lot of more politicians should heed the example of our founding father to serve and then go back to your life as you knew it before politics.
Yeah, we've all seen these really sad, cripplingly sad if you know a family member with Alzheimer's or Parkinson's, of course, which I do, moments where Mitch McConnell just breaks down and can't speak. And he just does a full factory reset. And this guy was allegedly in charge of the Republican Party in the Senate. What an insult to the people of Kentucky, to every Republican. our political system. Moments like this were just really tough to watch, and it really makes you wonder, like, why, if there should also be like maybe a fitness test, right? Like for mental fitness acuity and diseases in the Senate. Obviously we saw Dianne Feinstein. She was in her 90s getting wheeled into committee meetings and having her staff vote for her. Like, that should be patently illegal. And then she died. I mean, she just straight up died in the Senate. And that happened just last year. It seems a total and complete insult to our republic. So you'd be in favor of like a 2-term, you'd vote for term limits in the Senate.
Look, I think term limits are a great thing. And I think one of the reasons why we have the challenges we do is that you have someone like Mitch McConnell that's completely out of touch with the American worker and what's going on in our economy. Mitch McConnell came into office 1985. Benny, I think that may have been before you were born.
Yes, it was.
So, I mean, think about that. What does he know about you and your family and what you're trying to do if he hasn't even been in the real economy outside of politics for over 40 years? It's absolutely crazy.
Yes.
And look, I think we saw this with Joe Biden. I mean, look what we just came from in the last administration. We saw the auto pen, and we saw these woke 25-year-old staffers that were basically running our country. And we can't have that again in other parts of our government. And look, I think it's abundantly clear to America that this kind of stuff is it's gone too far. And I think Joe Biden and Mitch McConnell, they're kind of one and the same in that sense, that they've really been what the swamp and what Washington has been notorious for, and what people are rebelling against, I think, at the ballot box. And I think that's a strong signal to Kentucky and also the rest of the U.S.
Thank you for saying that. Because it's been a while since we've covered this. And, it's like Joe Biden sort of fades off into the distance. You did Stockholm Syndrome. You just kind of try to forget we went through all that. But we shouldn't forget it. And Mitch McConnell, Nate, made all of us frauds. Because he was the leader of the Senate, suffering from arguably more embarrassing senior moments than Joe Biden was. And so we were tolerant of that, right? We didn't impeach him or like kick him out. Some senators tried. Like, we just allowed it to happen, same way as the left allowed Joe Biden to happen, as an insult to all of us. So it was prima facie. It was an insult to all. Like, Mitch McConnell serving through all of that, like, was an insult to all of us. And then his little mongoloid staffers, man. I mean, the way that these guys get power is they have these little networks, and they run these networks through DC. And I'm sure they hate you. What are you going to do to try and abolish this McConnell network that is totally fraudulent and is often and regularly, we know, we have a lot of little birdies, acting against the will of President Trump? Because that's the way that McConnell can maintain power forever and outlast Trump, is if he keeps his little, goblin staffers placed all throughout the city.
Look, Benny, I'm really proud that back in February, when McConnell was actively thwarting President Trump's nominees, I was the first to call for Mitch McConnell to retire and to resign if he wasn't willing to go along with the will of the people, the will of the voter. Remember, Benny, President Trump carried Kentucky by 30 points. 30 points. He's iconic in Kentucky. And we haven't seen performance like that in over 100 years in presidential politics. So the fact that he's actively voting against the will of the Kentucky voter, that's what was so alarming to me. And look, there's no doubt about it. We are taking on the McConnell machine. This is a machine, Benny. And these are generations of people that have been enriching themselves through government, and they're panicking. They're absolutely panicking because we are saying things that nobody's ever said in a campaign in Kentucky. We are calling out Mitch McConnell for what it is, the corruption and the things that have been thwarting to our president over and over again against the will of the people. We're calling those things out. And I don't think anybody's ever had the nerve to do that and the courage to do that in Kentucky. And I think the voters, that's resonating with them because they're finally like, someone is speaking up. I mean, Benny, I'll give you another example. I get this letter from the Republican Party of Kentucky last week after our video premiered. This is our launch video for the campaign. And at next month's Lincoln Day dinner, the letter says basically you cannot speak ill of other Republicans that are not on the ballot. Now, what that means, Benny, is that I'm not allowed to talk bad about Mitch McConnell at the Lincoln Day dinner that we're having in about 3 weeks. And I thought that was absolutely crazy. I mean, again, this guy is on his way out the door, and he's still trying to thwart and trying to control his message and what he's telling people in our own party. And again, Benny, enough is enough. And that's why I say, everyone listening, we need your help. Go to natemorris.com, chip in, help this movement to take on the McConnell machine, because it's about Kentucky first, but also the rest of the United States is going to benefit tremendously when we get some new leadership in Washington and get rid of the stench of Mitch, as the president says.
Yes. Well, I mean, listen, we can't imagine a Republican Party in Kentucky that would say you're not allowed to criticize another Republican. This is a pretty famous clip of Mitch McConnell at, is it called Fancy Farm? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
I've never been there, but like it sounds like a riot where the politicians get a chance to speak in front of their constituencies, and Mitch McConnell didn't get a great reception here. This is just a short clip of how Mitch McConnell is treated in Kentucky, and the party's telling you can't criticize him? They're yelling retire, by the way. Hundreds and hundreds of Republicans are screaming retire and then booing Mitch McConnell so loudly you can't hear anything he's saying. It's probably for the better. But that's wild. That's wild that you can't criticize him. Okay, well, I'll give you an opportunity to criticize him. How about this? They're not going to like this one. You talked about how Mitch McConnell is just like Joe Biden. I agree with you, but I agree with you more than just like the mental senility part of it. This article from the Federalist is wild. It's about how Mitch McConnell got filthy rich by betting against American markets, betting for China, and investing in China in deals that, of course, was Nancy Pelosi style deals where he knew that he would benefit if he passed certain legislation. And he, through himself and his wife, were able to get filthy rich, hundreds of millions of dollars of net worth by investing in America's enemies. And it seems like a wild thing for the leader of the Republican Party to do. Would you be in favor of somebody investigating how Mitch McConnell and Nancy Pelosi got so damn rich, Nate?
Look, Benny, I think everything's on the table. I mean, the fact that Nancy Pelosi's been able to pick stocks the way she has, I mean, she should have been a Wall Street trader if all that stuff is real. And look, I think, again...
Instead, she became an America trader.
Well, I mean, look, that's right.
I'm entitled to one dad joke per
yeah,
stream,
that's pretty
Nate.
good. That's pretty good, Benny.
I'm done.
But look, I think this is at the heart of the matter of why the American people don't trust Washington, is that you've got people that are doing things like this, that are enriching themselves instead of going to Washington to serve and be there for the right reasons. And again, I think one of the things I go back to is that when I was looking at the seat, Benny, there was a lot of rumors at the beginning of the year, if we were going to get in the race at that time, or when we were actually, what we were going to run for. And the two guys that are in the race now, they basically said, they will only run if they get Mitch McConnell's approval. So both the guys were waiting on Mitch McConnell to give them the signal, like, hey, it's okay for you to get in. And we've had this machine style politics in Kentucky and in Washington for a very, very long time. And McConnell has been the political boss. He's been the boss for decades now. And that kind of system breeds corruption. That kind of system breeds patronage. That kind of system breeds all the things that we're having to deal with in D.C. that are wrong with Washington. And that's why we've got to elect an outsider. We've got to have somebody who's outside the system. President Trump proved that as a business person, you can have a tremendous impact coming in with a fresh perspective. My buddy, J.D. Vance, who I think is going to go down as one of the greatest vice presidents already, he's proven that as an outsider, as a senator, and now as a VP, look what you can get accomplished. Look what you can do, and look at the platform you can build that's outside the swamp. And those kind of things have been very inspiring to me and very motivating to say, we can bring something totally different that Kentucky hasn't seen in a very, very long time, if at all. And it's time for a change and a clean break.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you want that clean break, go follow Nate Morris on social media. Got the trash truck there in the logo and everything. That's great. Oh, man. Almost 100,000 followers. The man who could send the turtle into permanent retirement is Nate Morris. Let's get him over to 100,000 followers today. Nate Morris, Godspeed, and we look forward to having you back, man.
Thank you, Benny. Great to be with you.
See ya. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're like the federal government and you don't ever want to give anyone any receipts or have anybody find any of your emails or text messages, you should try Bunker. Bunker is an app that can make sure that you protect your family from cyber criminals and online predators. Seems to be a topic of the show today, but this is for good. Bunker can ensure that everything that you love and care about, like wedding photos, baby pictures, special memories, financial information, IDs, birth certificates, passports, tax documents, wills, trusts, insurance, that all of that is protected from thieves. Bunkers was developed by experts with 25 years of experience in catching criminals and fighting cyber crime. They created Bunker to protect their own family, and now it is available to you. This private messenger can help you share all of your messages, photos, and files with your spouse, children, connecting other people who you approve of. No spam, no surveillance, no imposters ever. It is the true digital lockbox. You should visit their website at bunker.com. Bunker.life, forgive me. Bunker.life/Benny. Use the code Benny for 25% off. That's BUNKR.LIFE/Benny for 25% off your family plan today. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a wild day at the White House. Netanyahu's going to be at the White House. There should be some fireworks there. We'll see what happens next. This has been our show for today, all the time that we have. The best that you can do is continue to fight for the truth and to know that that fight will carry on for the end of our lives, because we live in a sunken world. It is a dark place. We didn't, it is an imperfect world. And you're going to have an accounting someday. And were you salt and light? Or did you contribute to the darkness? We are going to be contributing to the light on this program. Please join us. Please subscribe to our podcast. You can do so with this QR code right here. You can do so at bennyjohnson.com. Ladies and gentlemen, you can scan right there to subscribe to our podcast and make sure that you are, well, helping the people who fight for you. We'll continue to fight for truth. Sometimes it doesn't make us a lot of friends. This has been a tough show because we have to effectively go, against the work of people who we really respect, right? But I think Mike Benz explained it really well. There are very, very powerful forces that have had a free reign for a long time to do evil things. And so we fight against them. And the only way that we know how, actually, in this mortal world, which is our verse of the day, from Luke 8, forgive me. For nothing is secret that will not be revealed, nor anything hidden that will not be known and come to light. What a perfect verse of the day. Ladies and gentlemen, a perfect verse of the day. This is good to hold dear because we'll all have to give an accounting. So even if you get away with it down here, you won't actually get away with it. So remember, vengeance is the Lord's. It's your boy Benny. Thank you for marching with us. In the end, we win. See ya.
Welcome back to the DOJ Has Downs. They're at the gate, and they're off. Jumping out in the lead is underage girls and Bill Clinton close behind. It's a blue dress painting and a creepy island. And now here comes the Lolita Express. A curious prince. Andrew falls back as the FBI takes the reins. Faulty cameras falls off quickly as a fat Bill Barr moves into position. And here comes my guards. Took a nap followed by the strongest bedsheets and the dumbest thing we've ever heard. Coming down the back stretch is Maxwell the Mossad agent moving ahead of dumb horny celebrities, but coming on the inside is leveraged politicians and a blackmail operation. It's Binders Bondy followed by 10,000 hours of footage. Awful footage. Boxes of evidence is challenging for second going into the clubhouse turn. Passing on the rail is a creepy temple that looks like Ellen DeGeneres studio backdrop, followed by cardboard in the windows, a giggling Bill Gates, and in general, you always have to be careful. Here they come, spinning out of the turn. Epstein didn't kill himself is in the lead, but here comes Cash and Bongino. No arrests and public outrage are neck and neck, and down the stretch they come. Pedos run our government is pulling away from disappearing victims by a length, but coming in strong is no videos exist, but I saw the video, and nothing is wrong. Binders Bondy is passing phase 1, and at the wire it's Epstein. Did hang himself, there is no list, and a massive scandalous cover-up.
Where the truth gon' be, faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to life. From the speeches to debates, Benny sharp like a blade, cutting through the lies, watch the truth cascade. With the warrior's heart, this man never fades. You know it's prime time when Benny invades. From saving the nation to stories untold, the Benny Show's a storm, see the truth unfold. Stay in the loop, let freedom take hold. Salting all the libs, soul never sold. It's the Benny Show, where the truth gon' be. Faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. Liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. From the speeches to debates, Benny sharp like a blade, cutting through the lies, watch the truth cascade. With the warrior's heart, this man never fades. You know it's prime time when Benny invades. From saving the nation to stories untold, the Benny Show's a storm, see the truth unfold. Stay in the loop, let freedom take hold. Salting all the libs, soul never sold. It's the Benny Show, where the truth gon' be. Faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light.